Hello everyone, this is going to be part one of my boss ranking of all the bosses in Final Fantasy Origin. And in this ranking, I'll be basing the bosses off of their quality as opposed to their difficulty. However, difficulty might play a factor in the quality for like some of these fights. But I have to say that I really enjoyed this game overall, and the bosses were definitely a highlight of the game where I felt most of them were really good. There were a few ones that were mediocre, but I don't think there were really any that many that were bad per se. So without further ado, let's get started on this boss ranking. Alright, coming at last place is going to be the boss that probably disappointed me the most, unfortunately. And it has to be the possessed Bikke fight. And I have to say, when I first saw this guy, I was really excited because like I thought it would be like a Bikke fight that was scaled for like the end game. Because I thought Bikke was a little too easy the first time around. But it was kind of more towards the beginning of the game, so I was kind of more forgiving of that. But this fight actually felt easier, which was just really disappointing. I could be a little biased though, since I countered his axe really well, since I thought I'd do the exact movements he did really well, since I was using the axe at the time, and as a result, I knew exactly how like the moves would strike and the timing of them and how to dodge them. And I have to say, I think he might not be the best as well, because he's really. I think he's just supposed to be more like a mini boss, since he doesn't have a second phase, like literally every other boss in this game, aside from his first appearance. And I have to say another knock on him is that I basically beat him on my first try, where most bosses at least take me like 5 to 8 tries, and like someone like Tiamat could take me like 30. And overall, I have to say that his axe attacks are serviceable. There's a few cool ones in there, like Fury's Blow is one of my favorites, and it's one of my favorites to use, like in game personally. But I have to consider him like a C tier boss, which is kind of impressive for this game. That the lowest I'd consider is a C tier for this guy. But unfortunately, I have to place him at the bottom of the list. All right, coming at second to last place is going to be the first fight of Captain Bikke. And I have to say, I do like this fight, similar like the last one, even though they are both at the bottom. And this one I think is cooler because it feels like something like straight out of Pirates of the Caribbean, where like you're basically fighting on a pirate ship against like a pirate crew, which I think is pretty cool. But I will say that Bikke is pretty easy to counter, and keeping your distance makes this fight very trivial. But I do like the pirates he calls, which I think gives an edge over the later one, where it does add some challenge, where you have to kind of dodge them as well as dodging Bikke. And actually, on a related note, I really wish the second fight he'd summon like some fiends, because I feel like it would add a lot of difficulty to the fight and make it a lot more fun. That being said, though, Bikke is again pretty simple, and he is fairly easy, so I'm gonna have to place this fight at second to last place. But I do give him an edge over himself later in the game. All right, and the first non-Bikke fight in the list is going to be Cray Claw. And with Cray Claw, he's mostly just low since I felt like he was too easy, especially if you use water spells, which is his weakness. But I did feel that the parry and soul burst timing in this fight against like his melee attacks and his beam attacks is just really satisfying. Also, I liked his attraction and repulsion bubbles. I think they were a cool idea, but I just found them a bit too easy to avoid, which didn't really add much challenge to this fight, but they were still pretty cool. And I have to say that the second phase of this fight fell a bit flat for me, not because it really ruined the fight, but just because it really wasn't that much different from the first. Like, he just kind of turns invisible a bit, but you can still see him. And I kind of get that, like, making him truly invisible while still keeping the fight balanced might have made this, like, a really annoying fight, so I am more forgiving of this phase, not really feeling that special. But that's all I really have to say about this guy. I think he's a decent boss, but he is fairly easy, and his design really wasn't anything flashy that really stood out. And overall, I really don't find this fight that memorable. Alright, next up on the list is going to be the Zombie Dragon boss fight. And this is actually the only boss that I'm pretty sure most of the community hates, because I watched one of Poofer Llama's videos, and like he hated it, and like the whole comment section was just hating on this boss. But I don't think it's that bad, but there are a lot of flaws in this fight that I kind of agree with. Overall, I have to say that I like his melee attacks with his like head and like his arms, and even like his tail one that's like not an unblockable. But I really hate like that tail swipe attack that's not blockable. And I feel like his charge attack's a bit broken because I found it really difficult to get out of the way since you can't like burst it or block it. And also, I have to say the poisonous attack isn't the best. Like I feel like his poison dragon fire attack is okay, but like the bubbles he spawns constantly just really. I feel like they make this fight worse because there's just so many of them, and it's just you can technically counteract them with Dia, but I feel like this really isn't enough, and I really wish there was a better counter for this. And also, when you are affected by poison in this fight, Cure doesn't like let you like cure any status ailments, and like the poison does a lot of damage, which definitely makes this fight really annoying. Also, I feel like his second phase isn't the best either, but I did find using Dia was could like damage him, but he's on the ground. Like you could wait for like him to pop out, and the Dia would like damage him. And I kind of found it okay since he's kind of a glass cannon in this fight as well. Like you can do a lot of melee damage, but he's very aggressive, which wasn't my favorite. And I feel like if like you're having trouble beating him, this phase could be really frustrating. And overall, I have to say this guy really isn't the best, but I do somewhat enjoy fighting him despite his flaws. And I like the challenge this guy brings compared to like the fights below him on the list, so I'm gonna give him this spot on the list. Next up on the list is gonna be Lich. I have to say this guy's a pretty good boss. The skeletons he spawns are a nice change of pace than from most of the bosses in this game that just fight you one on one. But they can be annoying at times, but they're mostly easy to defeat. So I'm fine with them, but they're not my favorite. Also, I have to say his binding a grab attack looks pretty cool when it hits you, and it can do a serious amount of damage and kind of has like a long cutscene. Well, not cutscene, but more like animation. Also, I have to say his magic attacks are all pretty well balanced. And I really think he can use Flare since you can redirect it on him, which I think is pretty fun, even though it doesn't do as much damage as I think it should when you redirect it. And also, I really like Soul Bursting his Ice Dust and like Curse attacks. And I have to say, his Gaia's Wrath, Earth attack is also pretty fun to dodge. Since like if you're at the center of it, like you can get like some free hits in, which I like. And also, I have to say, like his second phase is pretty fun since his melee attacks get more aggressive and faster, which I feel like just the small increase in difficulty makes the second phase really fun. And that's really all I have to say. Lich is pretty solid, and I like him. Like his low spot in the list doesn't mean I don't like him. But there's so many bosses in this game that I just like really enjoy, where I just prefer them over Lich. So I have to place them higher. So on to the next boss. Alright, as some of you might remember if you watched my previous boss ranking videos of Devil May Cry 5, I completely forgot to put Malphas in the script, which I mentioned in that video. In this one, I completely forgot about Astos. And over, I have to say, of Astos, I feel like his first phase is a lot of fun. He is a very unique fight. I think he's like the smallest enemy for sure, even among like the humanoid enemies. And this makes him really unique, which kind of makes this like a mixed fight. Like it's there's some things this fight does really well, but some that aren't the best. And I have to say, I really like his melee and ranged attacks. Like he has a good mixture of those. But I am a bit mixed on his teleporting though, since it makes it very hard for me to telegraph his attacks and soul burst them properly. But I might have to attribute this to my lack of skill, like in countering these attacks. Also, his range attacks are pretty solid. I like his ice, lightning, and darkness attacks. The ice are my favorite because it's easy to soul burst, at least for me. And I will say though, like in his darkness, I don't like that you get punished for like trying to attack him when he charges up his darkness. As even though it makes the fight more difficult, I feel like this would be a fun opportunity to get some combo attacks in. Also, I will say his second phase is good, but I feel like the arena is too small for him, in my personal opinion. And the fact that he can aggressively charge across the entire arena with an unblockable makes this really annoying. I will say though, I do find his attacks really cool in this phase, like his Ultima attack and flare. Just are some like the coolest looking moves in the game. And this boss is fun to hit, but again, small arena just makes it not so fun. But it's still okay as a second phase. I think I prefer the first phase a little more though. But that's all I have to say about this guy. I felt Astos was pretty good, but he definitely could have been better. Also, before I'm done talking, I feel like the two phases are different enough with Ultimate Weapon Origin, where I kind of wish like you didn't have to when he failed against Ultimate Weapon Origin. I kind of wish you could just fight it instead of having to fight Astos again on retries. Again, this might be just a preference based on like skill, but I feel like it makes a lot more sense. And on that side note, on to the next boss. Alright, next up on the list is a boss I really enjoyed. It's going to be the Great Marlboro. And, well, this guy is very basic. The small arena does add a lot of challenge to this fight, particularly in dodging his charge attack, which I feel like is a lot more fair than the zombie dragon fight. Also, his grab attack's pretty terrifying, but I do find it annoying how you have to dodge it like 5 times for it to like stop, where I feel like 2 or 3 would be more than enough of just showing you know how to dodge it. And it just adds a little bit of like artificial length to this fight, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but it still is a good attack. I will say his aggression's at a very good level. I like that he's a little more aggressive than the typical boss. And his healing, occasional healing, gives you a decent amount of chances like hit him, which I like. And also, I really like that you can cut off his limbs. I think it's really cool and just super satisfying when you cut them off. And they also make him weaker, like in a lot of his like hitting attacks. And I have to say, I like his second phase. I think him swinging is just really cool, and I like how he aggressively like kind of like rolls towards you. Like I think that's really fun, just really unique. And also, the first time I fought him, like after Tiamat, this guy was really enjoyable since he really wasn't overly difficult. Where I really struggled in Tiamat my first playthrough, so I definitely found him enjoyable because of that. And overall, that's really all I have to say about this guy. He's a great iteration of one of Final Fantasy's most famous bosses, or I guess more like enemy, but like he really doesn't disappoint. All right, and kicking off our top 10, we're gonna have another one of Final Fantasy's most like famous enemies slash kind of bosses. In most games, like I'd say Iron Giant's kind of something in between, like a regular enemy and a boss. And I have to say, in this game, I really like how he can switch up his elemental attacks with his sword, and he feels extremely well balanced, especially in his first phase. His melee attacks are really fun to soul burst, and it is pretty cool to dodge him up close. Like sometimes I even realized I could do a significant amount of damage when I stuck behind him and dodged slightly at times, as he tried to get me with a sword, but he failed miserably and struggled to retaliate. I thought this was pretty cool overall. And also, I like that you got a lot of time to do charge up attacks in this fight, like when he charges a sword up, which I definitely like. I like the slams he does. Like I like how you can dodge like each one, maybe get a hit or two in, then dodge the next one, as he does them repeatedly. And again, all of his elemental range attacks are really fun. Like it's really fun to soul burst them, and it's a good way to build up break gauge for this fight. And I will say, the first time I tried this fight, I actually had a hard time on the second phase because I forgot you could just block his charge attack where he kind of just spins at you. But when I realized you could just block it, this became kind of trivial, and it doesn't drain too much of your break gauge, which I like. And I think it's a good balancing decision. Also, I have to say, in a second phase, like his other attacks, including like his range attacks and his grab, are pretty cool. I like his grab especially since it feels like he moves in a way that really isn't human, which is good for this guy since he's kind of like a robot. And overall, to sum it up, I think his second phase is pretty solid, with Team Ninja's spin on this guy being pretty good. At least I think it's their spin. Like, I don't think this variant of Iron Giant really exists in anything else. But I have to say, I don't think this is quite as good as the first phase, which I think is really good. And I definitely think this is guy's great boss. On to the next boss. Alright, rounding up this part of the list is going to be the Elemental Core boss fight at ninth place. And I have to say, I really love this fight. Switching between fighting a fire and water elemental, whilst also fighting both at the same time, makes for a really good fight. Also, I feel like the idea of this fight is really unique, with you having to damage the core in between taking one of the elementals out. And I think this definitely elevates this fight since it adds a bit of strategy, where you should target one elemental at a time, because damaging both really makes no difference. And this not being a mindless beatdown and having some strategy mixed in definitely elevates this fight. I will say though that I'm a bit more mixed about the second phase of this fight, where I don't feel like this is much fun since I don't like how there's next to no area in the arena that is covered by the elemental puddles, similar to the Poison of the Dragon zombie fight. Although I don't think this fight is nearly as bad as that one, but it's still frustrating for me for a player who likes to really move around a lot. I will say that you can soul burst a lot of his attacks, which makes this phase a bit more fun when you get the timing down for a lot of his jump attacks. And this makes this much better than the zombie dragon boss fight, where a lot of his attacks aren't burstable or blockable. Also, though, I have to say, this phase feels like really like the opposite of the first, and it feels a tad generic, with you beating down a big blob, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just nowhere as unique and cool as the first phase that really elevates this fight. Also, before I'm done talking about this guy, I have to say that the design of this boss is really good, especially in the first phase. And it's one of my favorites in the entire game. Also, the Dance of Death attack is one of the most visually striking moves in this game, in my opinion. Alright, that's going to do it for part one. I'm going to try and get part two out within the next week, but I still haven't started it yet, other than I did finish the script for all the bosses, but other than that, I really have no progress. I do have footage I want to use, but anyway, thanks so much for watching the video. If you made it to the end, I really appreciate that. And I have to say, I really hope my rankings were good. Let me know in the comments whether you disagree or not. Again, all rankings are my opinion. Where I think I got them mostly right. I fought almost all of these bosses at least twice just to make sure whether I had them at a good spot. Like the only ones I really didn't fight twice were like Cray Claw and the second Bikke fight, where I kind of had an exact idea of where I wanted to put them, and I felt like I didn't need to fight them again. And again, I really hope you all enjoy the video. And I think it's really weird that like I think it's the only video for boss ranking of this game out there. So I really hope I did a good job. Anyway, I hope you all have a great day and see you next time. Take care.